Today, we've got Mahfuz Chowdhury, who's a strategy finishing school member who's going to take us through his strategy portfolio / strategy operating system. Thanks so much for joining me, Mahfuz. Would love for you to take us through the portfolio, and then we can get into a couple of questions after that.
Thank you very much, Julian. This was a very exciting project to work on, and it couldn't have come in at a better time with where I was in my career. Just a quick background about myself. I've just recently have become a director of strategy for a digital marketing agency here in Canada. And along the way, as I was working my way into this role, we started planning for a company offsite event with a team of 40 members. And I was given an opportunity to introduce the idea of strategy and what that looks like to the agency at this offsite event. And I thought, what better time than to show this operating system to the team than on this offsite day. And I remember during the strategy finishing school, I heard Julian say how valuable it could be to really sell the value of strategy using this deck. So I thought this would be a great opportunity. So what I'm sharing with you today is actually what I walked our team through during the offsite event as I was in the front of the room, and it was incredibly well received. And I could tell that since then, our team has been so much more receptive about what this can do for our clients, both past, present, and future. So really excited to show you what I presented and how that allowed the team to really take in the value of strategy. And what it started with is a lot of the things that I believe works really well with the operating system here. What is strategy first and foremost, having to redefine that in the eyes of our agency, showcasing some examples of outputs and workflows that we'll be using for our clients day to day. And I started with the basic, taking them back to the ground floor and said, hey, why do we need strategy? And I broke it down to 3 different reasons. And for each one of the reasons, I tied it back to different scenarios of what our agency has been experiencing. We're a 14-year-old agency, so there's a lot of examples to pull from. And I said, hey, reason number 1, it saves us a lot of time. We've definitely had challenges where if we don't have a clear direction or a well-written brief, we're finding ourselves wasting a lot of time. And reason number 2 is to avoid some of those large mistakes that we might have experienced in the past. If we don't really capture what the customers want and we don't really capture where to lean on, there's going to be a high likelihood that we'll be making some big mistakes. So this really helps us streamline that process and have a laser focus on a singular strategy. And then finally, efficiency. We talk about this a lot with producing the best product that we can. And this is going to allow us to not only get better solutions, but get to it at a faster rate and a more cost-effective rate. And I can already see as I was talking through these 3 reasons that there's a lot of head nodding. People were really starting to understand what we could start doing with bringing this into our daily process. I'm also a chef and an avid food lover, probably more of a foodie than a chef, but I decided to pull in some analogies that I knew the team could relate to. And I talked about how a strategist is like a chef. And I used that comparison to identify that, like a chef, before you create the menu, you really need to plan the menu. You need to pick the right ingredients. You need to organize the kitchen so that you have everything available. And in order to do that, you'll be able to provide the best value in the shortest amount of time. So by setting objectives, gathering data, and organizing resources, a strategist could also do the same for a business. I also talked about how a chef is creative and they can adapt. Things may not always go your way, or you may want to add something new to it. And this allows us to be creative and adaptable in these scenarios where we're constantly innovating, but we're also prepared to adjust strategies whenever challenges arise. And then finally, focusing on the end result, not forgetting what we're trying to achieve from the very beginning, and making sure that everything we do along the way has a very consistent process to get to the finish line. So bringing that back to how a chef focuses on the end result every step of the way. I thought it would be equally as important to share what is not strategy. The word strategy gets thrown around a lot in every agency and frequently in a lot of client meetings. And I thought it would be great to get everyone on the same page and share that, hey, a strategy is actually not a tagline. It's not just a business goal. It's not listing out the tactics. These are things we do. They have a place, but this is not what strategy is. And then not leaving them hanging, I turned it around and said, well, this is what strategy is. It's an answer to a problem that stands in the way of our goal. It tells us where we want to get to and the problem that we face and how we're going to get around it. And then really going to the transition from goal to the problem to the solution. And this is a workflow that we use in our agency. And I thought the best way to really paint the picture is bring up a workflow that they're already familiar with. And what I did is I dimmed the lights on all the other areas. And I said, this is where the strategy piece belongs. It creates a bridge between the discovery and the creative phase, and this really put a lot of weight on where strategy needs to be introduced and why it allows the creatives to be as effective along with the activation and measurement along the way. And then finally, spending a little bit of time on insights, which is probably the other major misconception in the agency world, and spending a little bit of time putting some weight on the unlock that an insight could be and how it is brought in between observing the problem and solution. And this is where I opened the floor up to discussions about what people thought the insight was. So it became a bit more of a conversation piece, which I thought was very valuable, that people really got to share their input and even use real client examples and said, hey, I think this is the insight on that client. And it allowed us to have a bigger conversation that you could tell that people were really turning their gears in the back of their head at this moment. So to paint the whole picture, what I started showing is some new additions in our toolbox. And this was pulled right from the strategy finishing school, was very valuable, saved me a lot of time, didn't have to put a lot of thought in what these examples need to look like. So I spent more time decorating it and putting our brand colors on it. The first part I wanted to start with was a strategy on a page. And I started by describing what a strategy on a page looks like. And I really went through the process of saying, hey, it's not just about top to bottom, but starting with the outer, the business problem, business goal, and working our way in with what is the consumer problem, consumer goal, and then capturing the insight and the solution. And what it really did, Julian, to sell the value here, I thought back to a client that we didn't really do this process with, being that this was a new addition to our process. And I challenged myself. I said, what I'm going to do is take that project back. Although it was successful, I'm going to redo that project as if we did strategy on a page again. So really to sell the value to our team, I said, hey, I'm going to bring back a client. The client's name is Back to Earth, where they created the country's first biodegradable straws. And we did some incredible work for that company. But I said, what if we started with strategy on a page? What could that look like? What could have been if we started this process? And you can tell the team really got excited to see almost a redo of a very successful project that we launched in the past. And to fully complete the steps here in the strategy on a page, what I captured was that Back to Earth wants the 72 million millennials in America to choose their eco-friendly and compostable straws. The problem is, and this is where I found a lot of good information in my research, that the convenience often takes the priority over maybe what's right and what the moral compass is telling them to do for busy millennials who are hustling and really looking at how do I quickly get through my day. So the problem was that millennials felt guilty when their routine started becoming too easy. They felt like they weren't doing enough. And then the insight that I captured here was that the convenience culture and Mother Nature isn't in a toxic relationship. So I put a bit of attention there. The toxic relationship is a common terminology used in relationships by millennials. So bringing that into the verbiage to really show that, hey, convenience and the environment actually aren't in a toxic relationship. They could actually be mutually very beneficial. So what we decided to do as a solution is that we need to show that the compostable straws allow the throw out to be more convenient than takeout. So really working out with the words there, that throw out is more convenient than takeout, so that millennials can align instant perks with a sustainable tomorrow, helping to achieve their goal, which is to increase the sales of Back to Earth amongst beverage lovers in America. So when I created this strategy on a page, it started to make a lot of sense with how it translates to a very successful creative brief. I first introduced what a creative brief looks like. I said it comes down to these 4 statements. It's about get, target customer, who, the consumer problem, 2, the desired response, by that one message and call to action that we want to present. So converting the Back to Earth message and strategy on a page into a creative brief, I was able to communicate that we want to get overachieving millennials who feel guilty when their routine becomes too easy to choose Back to Earth straws for their takeout beverages by showing that compostable straws are easier to throw out than takeout. And this is where I was able to translate into what the comms framework looks like. And once again, being able to use the templates was incredibly easy because it took me a lot of thought in showing how to really illustrate this visual, but being able to use your framework template was incredibly valuable because all I really needed to do was dress it up with my brand colors and really paint the picture here. So I've identified the objective, insight, the campaign idea, and the target audience at the very top. I broke it down into 3 areas of the decision-making and the customer journey, which is the living, looking, and buying. And I captured the different barriers where in the living side of things, they're in this phase where they're prioritizing convenience over principle. And the comms task that we would focus on is reminding them that while they're living their life and they're trying to be convenient, reminding them that the throw out is faster than takeout. And being that they're busy people and they're on the go and they're trying to live a convenient yet busy life. The key channels that made sense was to catch them where they're probably the busiest or where they really would feel this guilt of trying to make moral, inconvenient decisions because of convenient reasons. And showing it in the billboard in the middle of their hustle, the transit when they're traveling, coffee shops when they're grabbing their coffee and has an opportunity to make the decision of which straw to get or which cups to get. Online advertising with meta advertising, putting ads in front of them in areas that really presents that there's a better way. Then in the looking phase, when they're looking to make that decision, we needed to present something for someone that needs to be fast and easy. Because if it isn't, they may look elsewhere. And for us to present that, we wanted to focus on the back-to-earth straws being the future of convenience, reminding them that convenience is a priority rather than just the environmental benefits. And in this scenario, we bring it back with retargeted ads, show customer reviews of how it helped them and how it made them feel good and erase that guilt that they might have been feeling. And then a lot of cause events, a lot of environmental friendly events showing them that there is an option there. And then finally, during the buying phase, we want to remind them that this purchase isn't disrupting their routine. It's actually making their life easier. It's taking away the guilt and reminding them with the phrase that you're ending the toxic relationship and pushing that forward with retargeted ads and email marketing. Where I decided to finish this is rather than leaving it at the comms framework, I took it back to our creative team and I tasked them before the offsite and I said, hey, can you design some creatives that lines up with this framework so I can really sell the value of what it could have been if we went back to this project and started with that strategy piece first. And our creatives came back with some clean messaging and some branded items in those areas. You can see this is at the busy street intersection billboard here, showing it up as a billboard screen. Threw out faster than takeout, created some transit ads, whether it's in a train station or a bus stop, saying your go-to straw to go, 100% biodegradable, and then finally showing it in areas like coffee shops and cafes, convenience without compromise. And then knowing that our team is bigger on digital today than out of home, I wanted to show them some digital translations as well, saying, hey, this could be a digital banner, a carousel banner that says end the toxic relationship and really shows that transition from a toxic environment to a greener, cleaner place. And then really thinking about, hey, the online ads doesn't need to end at just the meta platforms or the social platforms. We can think bigger. They're busy people and they're maybe using Uber Eats because they're on the go. This ad could be placed in Uber Eats to win them over during those key decision-making moments. So showing it off in what an Uber Eats ad could look like, where it talks about the future of convenience. And then finally showing them the campaign ecosystem. This was the final edition of the different items added to this deck, and really painting the full picture of if the Back to Earth website is the final destination, is the holy grail of where we want to guide everyone to, what are the different channels that we could use to push the traffic and really increase the conversion rate of their website. So creating this ecosystem, this journey of showing the different channels that we would be using and the end goal in mind. Not only does it help our team fully see the big picture, but it helps communicate the big picture to the client. And this was incredibly valuable. Our 2-day offsite event was filled with series of activities, but I have to tell you, after it was over, the team members continuously reached out to me and told me they got more value, and they've asked me to see this deck over and over again so that they could start applying it for some of their existing projects. So I want to thank you for that, Julian. It's been a very helpful course, and I have to tell you, my team and I of 40, we frequently gather together whenever your monthly webinars take place. We get together in our boardroom and watch them together. You provide incredible value for myself and for the Candy Box team.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's just, I saw this deck and I just thought it was such a great example of what can happen with the strategy finishing school. Firstly, the amount of time that you can save. That's what I want to do. These frameworks have been tried and tested, and the fact that you can then go in and use them. But I think you did such 3 really great things that I love there is like when you're in that position of starting a strategy department, which is a big task, and really getting the value in, the what it is and what it is not slide was awesome. I love that. Then the idea of going back and asking the creative team to kind of create an example was just so smart, because they can really see it and you're really showing off the back of great work, this could have even been better. And I love that little example. I think the other great thing is I often talk, and I can see it coming through here, of like the importance of strategies so much on the words you use. And you can see in that the example that you had there of the creative brief, the toxic relationship, the take out, throw out, the word play there, so nice and sharp and tight. So I love it as an example, and it's a great guide for anyone who is in that position of setting up a strategy department or presenting it. This can be so helpful.
Yeah.
Mahfuz, I'd love to also hear about how you found out about the strategy finishing school and what you had hoped for before signing up.
Yeah, great question, Julian. So when I was looking into the world of strategy, just being in the agency world as long as I have, I've come across several strategists that talks about your webinars and your course. And eventually I signed up for a handful of them. And what I really loved is the emphasis, and I saw this in your webinar, and you put this emphasis in the beginning of the course where you talk about that feeling of doubt, that feeling of, hey, maybe I can't do it. And you have this imposter syndrome kicking in that makes you worried that you can't do the job well. And I have to tell you, that's something I've experienced a lot in my career. And knowing that you had this course that allowed me to go in with an open mind and even an ounce of fear that maybe I can't do the job, and then coming out of the course with confidence and being able to show up, I don't think it could have come at a better time. Not only has it given me the skill set and the approach to get to those insights and produce great strategies, but what it's really helped me with is show up on day one as someone that knows what he's doing, and he's not just someone that's trying to figure it out from scratch. So it's really given me the leg up and the confidence that I need to do well in my role. We actually have 4, maybe even 5 team members right now that are looking to sign up for this course because they've seen the incredible value that I've been able to bring back to the agency.
That's great. And so in the day-to-day, in the job right now, where have you seen it be most beneficial apart from obviously this first presentation? What units within the strategy finishing school have been helpful to date?
So we're at that point now where a lot of the businesses that work with us wants to lean in on different departments of our team. And that becomes very difficult, even frustrating maybe for a client, because they're having to talk to many talking heads. And frequently you'll hear something like, hey, I said something to this person, but now I'm speaking to another person again. And it made me realize that there was a little bit of a gap in the communication and the streamline of bringing a strategy through from beginning to end. And being involved really allows the clients to now feel like, hey, there is a consistent flow from the very beginning. It makes the team more excited because now they have one consistent strategy to lean on. So thus far, I would say the strategy on a page and creative brief has really been very beneficial from the client's eyes. Just yesterday, literally yesterday with the team, we pitched one of our biggest clients a strategy on a page, a creative brief, and a comms framework, and they left that room thrilled. I couldn't believe the reactions we were getting at the end of that meeting, and it just gave me confidence that this process that we've gone through is working well. And from a client's perspective who has no background on what we're doing and why we're doing with these different examples and frameworks, they're still seeing the value come out on the other end because it produces great results for them on the business side.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic to hear that it's just right in there and making a difference. To anyone who you think who might be sitting on the fence right now about signing up to the strategy finishing school, would there be any words of advice you'd give to them?
I highly recommend starting with your YouTube page. Julian, I have to say that when my curiosity was at its peak, the first thing I started doing is watching your YouTube videos. You provide incredible value on your YouTube channel alone that it just made me think like, hey, if I'm getting this on his YouTube, I wonder what the course has to offer. It must be way better. So for anyone that's on the fence, I have to tell you, when I first watched the YouTube video, I truly understood the approach to strategy. I truly understood what a comms framework can do. And I even love the day in the life video that you show to really build out what it looks like from an agency perspective. I think watching that video really builds the confidence of what can be achieved. And it felt really good. I have to tell you, when I signed up for the course and had almost zero information of what to do. And it made me feel good coming out on the other end saying, hey, it's great that I didn't need a prerequisite. I didn't need to already be great at it. For anyone that is thinking twice about it because maybe they lack the experience and education, I would say this is exactly why your course exists, is for people like us to get through from the beginning to the end.
Thank you so much for sharing the case study today. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Mahfuz.
Thank you, Julian. I really appreciate it.